So I found this channel called Rare Earth, who is doing a 5-part series on the Bosnian history, or let's say the ex-Yugoslav history, the ex-Yugoslav regions history. I want to do all 5 parts as a reaction video and also as a opinion video, because I'm from the region. Maybe he has things that I didn't know that I'm gonna explore with you guys, and also explain certain things if he doesn't explain them very well, or add information if needed. I hope you guys are gonna like this series. If so, just consider subscribing, because there's 4 more parts coming out. And don't forget to subscribe to the Rare Earth channel as well, because it's their video, their original video, and the content, the setup is made by them. Instead of me making a video that's worse in explaining it, because I don't have the production, neither do I have the time to make something this deep when it comes to information and in so many parts like he has done, or this channel has done.
As far as I see it, the Bosnian War started 1,500 years ago. And in this 5-part series, I intend to show you how.
1,500 years ago? Wait, what?
In 7th century Byzantium, it must have seemed like the world was collapsing. Islam had risen in Arabia, and its zealot soldiers had conquered land faster than any living person had ever experienced. Soldiers of empires once considered completely unbeatable were quickly falling before their sword. This new fanatical army seemed unstoppable. Within 25 years, Arab soldiers had chewed their way through Persia, the Levant, and North Africa. They'd conquered land from Algeria to Pakistan, an area so large that it now comprises 13 different nations. In the cities waiting to face their...
Wow. I get goosebumps from these images, because I just love this. I love being around these kinds of environments, and the nature in my home country is just... I miss it so much. When you live in the Netherlands, there's like nothing here compared to this. Nothing.
Wrath, they were spoken of as the horsemen of the apocalypse, as unstoppable as death itself. But they weren't the only problem on the borders of the Byzantine.
I really like how he's telling this story. Like, it's really nice to listen to.
To the north, a steppe tribe called the Avar had conquered a sizable empire, stretching their lands from the Carpathian Mountains of modern Romania all the way to the Slovenian Adriatic. As the arm of Constantinople grappled with the larger Arabian threat, the horde plunged repeatedly into the Balkans, and everywhere they went, refugees flooded before them. Slavic refugees. The arrival of the Avar coincided with one of the greatest human migrations in history. Slavic tribes pushed out from Eastern Europe in all possible directions, steadily working their way into the already populated areas that surrounded them. One Roman official exaggerated that there were so many tribes on the move that wherever they went, the grass died. We don't know what...
Wow, that's really impressive. If it gets like written like that. I just realized there's like a guy in his swimming shorts behind him there.
Caused it in the first place, but what we do know is that the Avar invasion did
oh well, Balkan man appeared.
Absolutely nothing to slow its pace. The further that horde punched down into their lands, the further those refugees fled into what Byzantines considered theirs. Soon, those Slavic refugees would form what we now consider the ethnic backbone of Yugoslavia. But those foundations are a lot more complicated than they might seem. Pinning down exactly what it is that defines a Slavic person cuts to the very heart of the frayed knot that is ethnicity. It exposes just how difficult a question identity can be. It questions the very basis of nationhood. So to explain, it's probably best we go back to the start. The early Slavic people were presumably a democratic, semi-nomadic collection of tribes. To call them united would be a massive overstatement, even in their earliest days. We now group them together for the ease of history, but there's little reason to believe that they would have done so in their own time. These were tribes, and they were doing normal tribal things. They fought, they absorbed people, they took land wherever they could. And if anyone stood in their way, they'd kill them, convert them, or impregnate them. Adding people to the tribe was not just a matter of genetics, it was one of culture. You didn't have to be born a Slav, you just had to become one. People who took their ways and spoke their language were integrated alongside them.
Oh, you didn't have to be born a Slav, you have to become one. That's yeah, I like this. So far, this dude is explaining it so well, and also not biased, which is something I really like.
And those who didn't were destroyed. But their arrival didn't change the name of the empires they settled. It simply changed who that empire ruled over. From the Baltics down to the Balkans, the tribes of the Great Migration quickly covered half of Europe. But it wasn't as if they were a monolith. The Baltics to the Balkans is a very long way. And as those incoming tribes met the people already living there, just as they'd imposed their culture on them, culture was imposed back. Sure, the scream going out may have been in a Slavic language, but the echoes returning were always warped by the landscape around them. As the whole divided, subgroups
He just presents this so well. The word choice is perfect, and
began to form, to consider themselves people within a people. Groups that had entered the Alps felt Alpin, and they wanted to express that.
I've been here. No joke, I've been here.
Those on the coast felt the sea.
I've been here as well.
Each was reacting to the requirements of life in their new environment, and in turn created lifestyles that separated them from their ancestors, that made them unique from the tribes that surrounded them. And yet, even as those schisms drove them further apart, in the eyes of a true other, they could still see themselves as Slavs in the reflection.
My city, sorry you.
Under the yoke of an invader with a different language, culture, and religion, the ancient ideal of tribal unity came roaring back to reality. In true Yugoslav fashion, the first Slavic kingdom would be born of ethnic tension. The Avar Khaganate viewed their Slavic subjects as a stone that would produce blood, and they were not afraid to squeeze. They taxed the people to near starvation, routinely raped Slavic women, and gang-pressed their men into war. But in doing so, they let the Slavs see themselves as one in the eyes of a true other.
Exactly. Here he does make a good point. It doesn't matter what problem is in the world. Look at the COVID-19 problem right now. It has actually brought together the entire world to fight this disease, because we got pushed back in a corner, and now we're all have to work together to solve it. And then religion and nationality and differences don't matter anymore, because they're fighting for the same cause.
People who had never been united started looking for a king. Under the backing of a Frankish merchant, they'd promised the crown. In 631, the predecessors of the Slovenes, Slovaks, Moravians, and Czechs successfully rebelled against the horde. And we don't know what happened after that kingdom collapsed, but we do know that it only lasted 30 years, the lifespan of a single charismatic leader, one generation to still remember themselves in the reflection of that other. But as soon as that other died, as soon as that king died, those tribes went right back to fighting themselves. And while that first Slavic kingdom wasn't to last, the identities it helped define grace our maps today. In the corpse of that merchant kingdom, self-defined ethnic states.
This is what I talk about in my videos. This really relaxed vibes in the summer in the Balkans. Everyone having fun, playing chess outside or in the park.
Would rise like mushrooms, conquer each other, collapse, and re-rise. As they pushed back the Avar, Yugoslavia would split into many competing factions, each with their own regional identity and way of life. Their empires would rise and fall, and their people would retaliate against each other, based purely on memories of the previous retaliation. The more they fought each other, the more distinct their identities became. It was a gyre spiraling ever outwards from a center that all could see, but none could ever return. From the cultural supremacy of those Slavic tribes that walked south came the Slovenes and the Bulgarians, the Croats and the Serbs, the Montenegrins, Macedonians, and Bosniaks, all variations on a theme. And perhaps if that was the only split they'd seen, they might have found a way to stay united. But by the 11th century, two major events had taken place that would have an undying effect on this region. The first was the Great Schism of Christianity, a religious power struggle between Rome and Constantinople that's still creating war to this day. And to the great misfortune of Yugoslavia, the fault line of this theological earthquake ran right through the center of their land. The second was the rise of the Seljuk Empire. The Byzantines had given everything fighting Arabia and those many rebellious Slavic peoples. So by the time this new wave of Turkic invaders arrived from the east, there was little left to hold them back.
Yeah, they were exhausted from warfare against the Arabic Arabic. All
The emperor kept his grip on Constantinople for a few hundred more years. From this point on, each passing decade would see a further collapse of what was once the most powerful empire on earth. As it breathed its last breaths, Bosno-Serbian and Turco-Slavic Bulgarian forces conquered as much land as they could. It was almost 1,000 years later, but that Eastern Roman emperor was still having the same damn problem. An invasion.
He was still having the same damn problem, because people don't forget. They are patient. They wait. And when they retaliate, you retaliate maximum strength.
Of Slavs and steppe tribes that he could never hope to stop. Eating away at that rotting Byzantine corpse, Yugoslav dynasties would grow to sizes so large that they would forever be considered the high water mark of their people. They would control nearly the entire Balkans. It was the culmination of thousands of years of migration, of conquest. This would be their crowning achievement. And those Turks came and took it all away.
Yep.
But more on that next time. This is Rare Earth.
This is the first episode so far, and this is just so well spoken, so well thought through, so well researched, so well made. So far, I have almost no comments on everything that has been said. Only a nodding head of agreement. This will help my audience, you guys, understand the history of the Balkans the way it actually is, with just the minimum amount of biased information due to politics or nationalists. So I hope you guys are going to like this series. If so, leave a comment down below of what you think of this first video. What do you think of everything that has been said in the video? Because I'm really wondering on if there are things that he's not saying correctly and I'm not saying correctly. I would really like to know, and of course research that as well. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, leave a like down below, and I see you in the next one. Ciao.
Perfect.